I got two things here. Today I'm going to be looking at this. This is the new iPad mini. I also have a smart portfolio and of course, the Apple Pencil too. I'm going to save this for another video. This is the new 9th gen iPad, the original Apple Pencil smart folio cover. But today we're covering this. Hello, my name is Brad and I review tech for creative professionals, and today we're going to be taking a look at the iPad mini 2021. Sometimes a new iPad means that they've refreshed the specs a little bit. Sometimes it means they've totally overhauled it. This is one of those times. This is a big change for the mini. It's like they've taken the iPad Air and shrunk it down to a smaller size. But the biggest change is this, the Apple Pencil 2. The way it charges is different, and the way it pairs with the device is different. More on par with the Pros and the iPad Air. And if you're looking for my reviews on those iPads, the best place to go is my website, where I rank a lot of the drawing tech that I review here on YouTube. There's links to all those reviews and other resources there as well. So in order to really test this thing, I need a good art project. And that is where you guys come in. I need a draw this in your style challenge. All right, sent. Now all we have to do is wait for you guys to come up with something for me to draw. While we're doing that, let's talk about what comes in the box. Overall, it's pretty minimal. You got your iPad mini, you find the instructions, the warranty, and some Apple stickers. And underneath that, you have a little power charger thing and a USB-C to USB-C cable for it. This does differ in some key ways from the iPad Air. Most noticeably is there is no Magic Keyboard accessory or keyboard accessory that Apple makes for this device. I'm sure there's going to be some third parties coming in to fill that gap. Apple does make some smart folio covers, which I'm a big fan of for drawing. Folds back in a nice way. It's a good angle to draw on. As you probably already noticed, this one is orange. And on camera, my iPad looks like it's silver, but this is a new color. They're calling Starlight. It's like a silvery white with just a touch of gold in there. You get it at the right angle and you could really see it. Hard to capture on camera, but in person, it looks really nice. This is not the only color it comes in. You could also pick it up in a space gray, a pink, or a purple as well. This does not use a lightning connector. It is using USB-C this year, but this is not a Thunderbolt port like you'll find on the Pros. One of my favorite features from the iPad Air is having the fingerprint reader on the power button. That returns here as well. To make room for the Apple Pencil, they've moved the volume buttons over to the top of the device. Now, one of the cool features with these volume buttons is how they change based on how the device is rotated. If they're in the bottom left-hand corner and you press what you think is the up button, the volume will go up. But what if you turn it the other way? It switches the orientation. So if I press the button that used to be volume up, it goes down because it's the button on the bottom. Whenever you hear a reviewer like me talk about how Apple pays attention to the details, those are the kind of details. We have some answers. We have some things to draw. All right, so I got some good stuff. It was a little hard to choose, but I found this piece by Instagram user name Elsvi. I love this. I really like this. And this is completely out of what I would normally draw, so this is going to be interesting. I'm not sure how I'm going to tackle this. There are a lot of drawing apps in the iPad ecosystem. I'm using Procreate, one of my absolute favorite drawing programs ever. I love it so much I have 3 courses for it. One for beginners, people who want to learn a little bit about cartooning, and also one on animation. Discounts down below in the description. I think the reason that Procreate works so well for this particular project is that they have some nice symmetry features, and also I can bring in a lot of texture brushes, which are going to work really well with what I'm thinking I'm going to do in my head. With symmetry turned on, everything I draw on one side of the canvas is just going to automatically show up on the other side of the canvas. It also helps that Procreate has this little preview window where I can pull up the original artwork. That's going to help me pull colors from it and just generally see what I'm drawing as I'm drawing. Let's talk about the Apple Pencil. At this point, it is a known quantity. Personally, it is one of my favorite styluses to draw with. There's a couple things that I look for in every stylus. One is pressure sensitivity, how organic it feels when you're drawing. A good stylus is going to feel like it's instantaneously responding to you as you draw. So if I apply a little bit more pressure, I'm going to be able to visually see that on the screen immediately. You're just not going to be any kind of lag there. Also, you're not going to see anything weird like the pressure blowing out at any particular place or weird ends to the lines. Also, another thing I'm looking for in all my styluses are really smooth lines. I do a lot of inking, even though here I'm doing a more painterly style and it doesn't matter as much. I don't like to see a lot of wave or jitter to my lines, and the Apple Pencil is really good about that. And then, of course, the last thing that the Apple Pencil is really good at, palm rejection. A lot of times when you're drawing on a touch screen, there's a chance that it might pick up your palm. Leave an extra mark, or you'll accidentally zoom in and out, or you'll accidentally toggle on or off a layer. All those things that you don't want to happen. aren't a problem with the Apple Pencil. Now, like I mentioned earlier, this is the Apple Pencil 2. This is the second generation that the iPad Air and the iPad Pros have used for several iterations now. It's really nice to have this on the Mini. It charges by snapping along the top, and it doesn't seem like a big deal, but if you've used the Apple Pencil 1, you've probably had experiences where it just runs out of charge. Since it stores and charges at the same time now with the second version of the Apple Pencil, it is a really nice quality of life upgrade. I'm not done with the drawing yet, but I do want to hit on some of the specs of this iPad. The screen, and this screen is really nice. It's only 8.3 inches wide, but it packs a lot of pixels. 2,266 by 1,488 to be exact. Now, the iPad Pro screen is technically better, does HDR, which is going to give you blacker blacks and whiter whites and a larger contrast ratio. However, I really feel like the screens, even on the older iPads or this iPad, are still exceptionally good. And if I'm not looking at this next to an iPad Pro, can't really tell the difference. The refresh rate on this screen is 60 Hertz. Now that's not a lot. It's not as high as the 120 Hertz you're gonna get on the iPad Pro, but it's solid. You'll hear a lot of people say, hey, you really need that for drawing. And it's nice to have for drawing, but you don't really need it for drawing. Part of the reason I love drawing on an iPad, really any iPad, is because the software is optimized so well for the hardware. If you've watched any of my reviews, whether I'm reviewing like a Wacom tablet or a Huion tablet and it's plugged into a Mac or even a high-end PC, and you see me drawing, there's a fair amount of lag there. That's just par for the course with most drawing apps on a desktop computer. But when you get to a tablet like this, if the software and the hardware are working well together, there's practically no lag, even though this is only a 60 Hertz refresh rate. If I have to slow down my footage in order for you to see any brush lag at all, it's not a problem. The display gets up to 500 nits of brightness. I've been drawing it in my really sunny area on my desk here, and I can see it perfectly fine. It's also a fully laminated display, so there isn't a big air gap like you'll find on the 9th generation iPad I'll be reviewing in a few weeks. And lastly, it's a True Tone display. Inside this iPad, we have the A15 Bionic, which is very similar to the processors that Apple is rolling out in their new iPhone 13s. The Mini also comes with 4 gigabytes of RAM, which doesn't sound like a whole lot if you're coming from the PC world, but is plenty for an iPad. This is also how much RAM they put in the most recent version of the iPad Air. The main concern with RAM when we're talking about drawing apps is how many layers you're going to be able to get in Procreate. And unless you're working on really massive files that require a lot of layers, you'll be fine. Storage capacity here is either 64 gigabytes or 256 gigabytes. This is a slight tangent. I'm going to throw it in here anyway because I think it fits. I really enjoyed playing games on this. I do play games on my iPad Pro. It's a big screen. It's really pretty because it's a big screen, but games are just really easier to control on a smaller screen. It's that Goldilocks size, right? It's smaller than the big iPads, but it's also bigger than a phone screen. It's got a front-facing camera and a back-facing camera. On the back, it's a 12 megapixel wide-angle lens, which can do up to 4K video recording at 60 frames per second, which is significantly more than what this camera right here does. The front-facing FaceTime HD camera is also 12 megapixels, ultra-wide front camera. It does 1080p video recording, so this is going to be really nice for video calls. Also, another thing Apple introduced earlier this year, at least on the iPad Pros, was a new feature they call Center Stage, which means they're taking that really wide-angle lens and they're cropping that video down so the camera is trying to figure out where you are in the frame and it's going to focus in on you. Move a little to the left, the camera moves a little to the left, move a little to the right, camera moves to the right. And I think it does this with multiple people. If someone walks in from the side of the camera, it'll zoom out a little bit to catch everybody. This is also using iPad OS 15. Now, by the time you watch this video, it's going to be available to the general public. But this is really novel for me using it for the first time because some of the new multitasking features are really nice. Some of the stuff they've added to Notes is really, really cool. And so far, I'm really liking it. All right, so how is this drawing coming along? I'm doing okay. I'm kind of winging it, and overall I'm feeling like I'm staying too safe. If I was going to do this a second time, I'd throw a little bit more me in there. But overall, I'm really digging this. Also, if you end up drawing this in your own style yourself, I would love to see it. I'm sure Elsevier would like to see it as well, so make sure to tag us on Instagram or Twitter if you try it out. And who knows, maybe your artwork will even show up in one of my future videos. All right, I think we are at the opinion part of the video where I get to tell you what I think about this thing. So I've been using the iPad Pro for several years now, and the one thing I definitely notice when I'm using the Mini is how small and light it is. I love having the huge screen on the iPad Pro. It is wonderful for drawing, but it's not perfect for everything. If you prop it up, it's great for movies. If you have the Magic Keyboard, it's great for typing. But lounging around on the couch and reading, it's really big. And the appeal of this is it's great for reading, it's great for content consumption, and it's also just this cute little compact digital sketchbook. Now, over the last few weeks, I've been using the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 3, which when it's unfolded is almost the same size as this screen. And one of the things I really did like about that screen is that it does feel like a little digital sketchbook that you're opening up all the time. I mean, it wasn't perfect. There was that bump in the middle that's a little hard to cover up. But the other thing that device really helps me to appreciate were the bezels that you find on an iPad. Probably seen it on the internet. Whenever somebody does like a concept art of what the iPad of the future will look like, it'll have like almost no bezels and the screen goes edge to edge. After using a device with almost no bezel at all, I am so glad they're here. If I'm reading something on this screen and my thumb's on it, it doesn't really matter much. I can still read. But if you're drawing on a screen and your thumb is resting on it, bad things happen. You either can't draw at all, or you zoom in or out, or it leaves extra marks on the page, it gets ugly. And here, really comfortable to hold just by resting your thumb on the bezel. A question I've gotten in the past on my old iPad mini review is the screen big enough? Yes and no. I think for drawing, if you're going to be mainly using simple drawing programs like Procreate or something like that, it's absolutely big enough. Just because the interface is so minimal and tends to get out of your way anyway, it's very easy to use. Now, when you jump up to other apps, I'm thinking like Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer, even like Clip Studio Paint, that's where the interface starts to get a little bit cramped on that screen. Totally usable, but you can tell that these apps have been optimized for those larger sized iPads. One of the other cons here is that this is a little bit pricey. We're talking about a $500 device, plus you're adding in the price, $130 of the Apple Pencil. So that puts you over $600. It's obviously a very premium feeling device, but at the same time, that's not cheap. That entry-level price is also based off the 64 gigabytes of storage. I wish at that price it bumped it up to like 128. 64 gigabytes is definitely livable. I don't think it's the end of the world, but you know, it'd be nice to have a little bit more. So do I recommend this? I do. However, for me personally, if we're just talking about what I would use, I really do like drawing on that larger screen. For me, the iPad Pro is the way to go. But I never leave the house. If you're drawing more on the go or you need a mobile sketchbook, I think that's really where this device shines. What do you think? Let me know down below in the comments section. Thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you in a couple of days.